If your vision is only success by cultural standards, then that's your vision. It's not God's. Because success for God is when the vision in your heart actually becomes, when you faithfully steward the vision that he gives you in your heart in a way, that it actually becomes a manifested reality in your life.
So the first thing I want to ask you is, did you know you were called to this? And if so, when did you know?
Oh. When you say, did I know I was called to this, you mean what I'm currently doing now?
Yes.
No. I know I was called to something. I knew that something was using my words to help people. And in terms of the way that kind of manifested itself, it manifested itself on a season-by-season basis. So I operated with the clarity I had for the season I was in. Mm-hmm. Rarely did I have clarity for the next season. And so I didn't see my life or my contribution to other people unfolding the way it's unfolded. I saw the step I was supposed to take next. I took that step, tried to steward it well, and remained open to what step I felt like was going to be the next step, next phase, next chapter in my journey.
Okay, great. This is great. So you decided, I kind of jumped over this. You originally went to undergrad to become a lawyer.
Yes.
Majored in political science. You had a change of heart or a divine intervention or whatever.
Yeah.
And decided to go into ministry. When you made that shift, how did you identify it? Like, did you say, this is what God is calling me to do? Or was it more so, I don't think my gifts are going to be properly managed in this space, I'm going to put it in this space?
No, it was not that. I don't feel that way to this day. I still feel like I would have killed law. To this day. Because part of what you see in me in terms of work ethic that manifests itself not just in how hard I work on my job, but how hard I work on me, is something that was divinely instilled in me through the vehicle of my father. So no matter what Dharius would have done, Dharius would have went hard in the paint for that thing, because that's a core value of me as a person that is not necessarily attached to a particular role. So the pivot to away from law school was a pivot that was a result of a clear sense that God wanted me to use my life in ministry, serving other people in a way where law school didn't fit into the equation. Because when I first started getting a sense of what I was supposed to do, I had to, and I don't know if I've talked a lot about this in the, part of the reason it took me so long to say yes was I had to get over my assumptions of what saying yes meant. I thought saying yes to this ministry thing meant saying yes to poverty. And what is often underestimated is not the economic ramifications of poverty, but the emotional ramifications of poverty. When you experience poverty, there is a degree of emotional trauma that you experience that can produce a fear of ever having to go back to that.
Right.
And so I think it kind of took me longer to say yes to this ministry thing because I had to overcome, and I don't think I overcame it, because I don't know how to overcome certain fears. I just know how to replace an inferior fear with a superior fear. So I was still scared to do it. I was just more scared not to obey God. Yeah. So I just did it anyway.
Yeah. What did that feel like? Like you knowing this is the route, now I just have to obey. What did that feel like?
Yeah, there was a degree of anxiety attached to it, but it wasn't a whole lot because I'm 20, 21. And in my mind, I'm always thinking backup plans. So I'm like, God, I'm going to do this thing. If it don't work, I'm going to spin the block and go back to law school.
Okay.
Or if it doesn't work, I'm going to go into the academy. I'll get my PhD and I'll go into the academy. So I was open to stuff like that all the way, even in seminary. So when I was in Princeton, I got invited to this event by one of the professors there where they kind of identified students who had potential PhD potential. Mm-hmm. And I got invited to that. I got extended the opportunity to try to go on this track to go into PhD work so I could be a professor, all those kinds of things. So, long story short, man, it was just some anxiety, but not a lot. I just felt like, hey, I'm going to take this one season at a time.
What up? Real quick, give me a second. Question for you. Do you want more peace? Do you want to be more productive? Do you want more purpose in your life? Do you want to be more profitable? If so, I can help you. I've got a mentoring and coaching group called Daniels Den. I want you to go to danielsden.com, find out more. I'll see you in the den.
When I knew I was going to do this, I started polling my audience on Instagram. And one of the questions I kind of want to throw out here, because someone might be thinking about it, and I don't really know how to really phrase it other than just how they said it. They said, and this is how they typed it, how do you know if it's really, all caps, your calling? I don't really know. I tried to like kind of curate the question to make it a little bit more, but I'm just going to ask it raw because I feel like a lot of young people are wading in the water of decision.
They are.
Because they're not certain or clear. Mm-hmm. How do you know it's really, or it's not something that you have?
I kind of reject the question a little bit.
Yeah?
I do. I reject the premise of the question.
That's what I was thinking, because, okay.
The premise of the question is based on an assumption that clarity is not relative. Mm-hmm. It's based on the assumption that there's a degree of certainty I have to have.
Exactly, right.
To do a thing God's called me to do.
Yeah.
When clarity can be 51%.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Yeah. So it's like, how do you know it's really God? I think there are seasons where from time to time you probably question.
Yeah.
It's like, I think you told me to jump out of this boat. I was at 90% when I stepped out. Now that I'm out here and the wind is blowing and it's getting a little shaky, I'm down to like 53%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now I'm drowning. I'm like, okay, it's 45%. Then Jesus picked me back up and take me back to the boat. Yeah. Okay, I'm 80% now. So I think the idea that I think I had a degree of clarity when I made the decision. That was the degree of clarity I needed for my decision. I don't assume that everyone has to have the degree of clarity that I had, because everybody's next step isn't as drastic as mine was. Mm-hmm. So for a leap that was that drastic, it required a degree of clarity for me that I didn't have, let's say, when I planted the church. Mm. So going to seminary, like 95% clarity. Planting the church, like 55%.
Wow.
But they were both God.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the experience like? Because I came into understanding Change Church. You were still in Jersey at the time, but it was, you were multi-location. In the beginning stages, you're building the vision. What was that experience like mentally for you as you're trying to make this thing literally out of nothing? You're planting a church and it needs to grow. What was those early days like for you?
Honestly, it's kind of a blur. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I think we all know everything is built twice. is built in your mind first, then you build it in reality. And so for me, I think I'm still building what I saw when I first started. So what I saw with the eyes in my heart in 2005, I don't see yet with the eyes in my head in 2023.
Wow.
Did y'all catch that? Because if your vision is only success, that's your vision.
Say that one more time. Well, hold on.
If your vision is only success by cultural standards, then that's your vision. It's not God's. Because success for God is when the vision in your heart actually becomes, when you faithfully steward the vision that he gives you in your heart in a way, that it actually becomes a manifested reality in your life. So success for him is faithfulness.
Yeah.
And in culture, we call the fruit of some of our, or the statements of some of our success. So like a large following isn't spiritual success.
Right. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
A big church is like church success is what culture would call successful. What I'm going to be held accountable for is, Dharius, how did you steward the vision I gave you in your heart? And did you settle for a definition of success that culture gave you and not a definition of success that I gave you? Yeah. Remember earlier in my leadership coaching session, I was sharing some of the challenges we're having organizationally. If somebody would peel back the wall, those challenges would pale in comparison to the average challenges at the average church.
Okay.
So to me, if you listen to me talk, you might feel like, oh my God, it's about to fall apart.
Right.
But my about to fall apart is probably top tier for the average pastor.
Right. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, but I am not gauging success on how well I feel like I'm doing based on the average pastor. Because that's not what I'm being held accountable for. I'm being held accountable to not how I'm doing in comparison to the other person, but how I'm doing in comparison to my own potential.